An Irishman is stumbling through the woods, totally drunk, when he comes upon a preacher baptizing people in the river. The drunk proceeds into the water, subsequently bumping into the preacher. The preacher turns around and is almost overcome by the smell of alcohol. When he asks the drunk, "Are you ready to find Jesus?" The drunk shouts, "Yes, I am." So the preacher grabs the drunk and dunks him under the water. He pulls him back out and asks, "Brother, have you found Jesus?" The drunk replies, "No, I haven't found Jesus." The preacher, shocked at the answer, dunks him once again, but for a little longer this time. He again pulls him out of the water and asks, "Have you found Jesus, my brother?" The drunk answers, "No, I haven't found Jesus." By this time, the preacher is at his wit's end. So, he dunks the drunk again. But this time, he holds the drunk down until he begins kicking his legs and waving his arms. The preacher again asks the drunk, "For the love of God, have you found Jesus?" The drunk staggers upright, wipes his eyes, coughs up a bit of water, catches his breath, and says to the preacher, "Are you sure this is where he fell in?" An elderly woman is riding in an elevator on her way to a doctor's appointment. Suddenly, the elevator stops, and a beautiful young woman, smelling of expensive perfume, steps in. She turns to the old woman and says arrogantly, "Giorgio Beverly Hills, $100 an ounce." On the next floor, another young, beautiful woman gets into the elevator. She also smells of expensive perfume. She arrogantly turns to the old woman and says, "Chanel No. 5, $150 an ounce." About 3 floors later, the old woman has reached her destination and is about to get off the elevator. Before she leaves, she looks back at the women, passes gas, and says, "Broccoli, 49 cents a pound." 3 men were met by St. Peter at the pearly gates. In honor of this holy season, St. Peter said, "You must each possess something that symbolizes Christmas to get into heaven." The first man fumbled through his pockets and pulled out a lighter. He flicked it on and said, "It represents a candle. You may pass through the pearly gates," St. Peter said. The second man reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. He jingled them and said, "They're bells." St. Peter nodded. "You may pass through the pearly gates." The third man started searching desperately through his pockets and finally pulled out a pair of skimpy panties. St. Peter looked at the man with a raised eyebrow and asked, "And just what exactly do those symbolize?" The man grinned and said, These are carols." One night, a priest, a preacher, and a rabbi are playing a game of poker when the cops suddenly bust down their door and arrest them all on the spot. They are immediately taken before a judge who tells them, "Look, it's late and I don't want to send 3 holy men to jail. So if you can give me a good reason as to why you weren't gambling, I'll let you go." The priest is the first to step forward and tells the judge, "We weren't gambling because no money had changed hands yet." The judge decides that this is a good enough answer and lets the man go. The preacher goes next and says, "We weren't gambling because we hadn't even dealt the cards yet." Again, the judge lets him go. With just the rabbi left, the judge says, "And finally, can you give me a good reason why you weren't gambling?" The rabbi gestures around the courtroom, empty except for the 2 of them, and asks, "Gambling? With whom?" An explosion last week killed a wild-living Navy boilerman, and he found himself in hell. Being used to stoking fires and extremely hot temperatures, he found hell actually quite comfortable. When Satan went to check out the new arrival, he found him sitting in his room smiling. "You like this?" Satan asked. "Yes, sir," said the sailor. "This feels like a spring day to me." Not wanting the new guy to be too comfortable, Satan turned up the heat a bit. When he went back the next day to see how his new arrival was doing, the sailor was still happy. He hadn't even broken a sweat. "I like this kind of weather," he told Satan. For the next few days, Satan turned up the heat more and more. But each day, the sailor looked as comfortable as ever. By Sunday, Satan decided to try something different. Rather than turn up the heat even more, he turned it off and turned on the air conditioning. Icicles formed in the sailor's room. When he checked on the guy, the room was icy and he was shivering, but he had a grin from ear to ear, bigger than ever. Satan was exasperated. "Why are you so happy?" he demanded from the sailor. "It's freezing in here." "Well, I'm from Boston," said the sailor, "and evidently the Red Sox just won the World Series." There is a diner in New Orleans that advertises that it will serve you anything you want, but if they can't, they will give you $5,000 as an apology. A man passing by sees this message advertised at the entrance. Thinking it's probably a scam, he decides to try it out anyway. As he enters the diner, a waitress seats him at a table. She asks the man, "What can I get you, sir?" The man thinks for a moment, then says, "How about an elephant's ear and a muffin?" The waitress replies, "You bet, I'll be right back with your order." The waitress then heads back to the kitchen. After waiting nearly 20 minutes, the man begins to think that this is going to be an easy $5,000. At the same moment, the waitress returns. Appearing a little anxious, the waitress asks, "I'm sorry, sir, but would you mind telling me what kind of elephant you want this ear from?" The man is stunned. How about an Indian elephant?" replies the man. The waitress says, "Thank you, sir," as she heads back to the kitchen. Not a minute later, the waitress returns again. "I'm sorry, sir, would you like the left or the right ear?" she asks. The man is starting to become very nervous at this point. The left ear, I guess." "Thank you, sir," replies the waitress as she returns to the kitchen. The man is beginning to wonder what he has gotten himself into, as he has no idea what an elephant ear costs. A few minutes later, the waitress returns with a platter of food and a $5,000 check. The waitress tells the man, "Here is your order, sir, and please accept this check and our apologies. But we are out of muffins today." One weekend, a man takes his blonde wife deer hunting for the first time. After he gives her some basic instructions, they agree to separate and rendezvous later. Before he leaves, he warns her, if she should fell a deer, to be wary of hunters who might beat her to the carcass and claim the kill. If that happens, he tells her she should fire her rifle 3 times into the air, and he will come to her aid. Shortly after they separate, he hears the signal, 3 shots from a rifle. Arriving at the scene, he finds his wife standing over a carcass and a very nervous-looking man staring down her gun barrel. He claims this is his, "But I was the one who shot it," she says. "She can keep it, she can keep it," the wide-eyed man cries. "I just want my saddle back." My friends, if you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.